Step away from the vehicle. Now, you match the description of someone trying door handles around here. Don't play games. Why are you parked here with all that stuff in the back? What are you doing in this neighborhood?
I'm meeting volunteers. I'm actually running for Congress in this district.
Yeah, running for Congress? ID, now.
Officer, I'm going to reach into my jacket for my wallet.
Slowly, keep your other hand.
The morning was ordinary. That's what makes it so devastating. No storm on the horizon, no warning. Just a clear Tuesday morning in the kind of neighborhood where American flags hang from front porches and campaign signs dot the lawns like a democracy in bloom. Daniel Brooks was running late, not unusual for a man whose schedule reads like a small country's cabinet agenda. Meetings, briefings, donor calls, community town halls, the kind of calendar that would make most people collapse by Wednesday. Daniel Brooks wasn't most people. He was a 41-year-old political candidate, a former public defender with 14 years of courtroom experience, a man who had argued in front of federal judges, drafted legislation proposals, and spoken at the National Bar Association's annual conference. He had been endorsed by 3 sitting Congress members. His campaign had raised over $800,000 in its first quarter. He was running for the United States Congress. And on this particular Tuesday morning, in broad daylight, on a public street he had every right to walk on, he was stopped, surrounded, and treated like a criminal because, according to the officer who initiated the stop, he matched the description. What happened next would be broadcast on every major news network within 48 hours. It would trigger a federal civil rights investigation. It would end one career and accelerate another. And it would force an entire nation to ask a question that has never stopped being relevant. Who gets to belong in America? Before we continue, what city are you watching from? Drop it in the comments right now. And if this is your first time here, support the channel by liking and subscribing. Stories like this need to be told, and with your help, we can make sure these events don't go unheard. Stay with me, because this story is just getting started. To understand the weight of what happened to Daniel Brooks, you have to understand who Daniel Brooks actually is, not who they assumed he was, who he actually is. Daniel Brooks grew up in Westfield, a mid-sized American city that sits at the intersection of industrial decline and stubborn community pride. The kind of place where the barbershop on 5th Street has been open for 40 years, where church lets out at noon on Sundays, and the parking lot turns into a block party, where everybody knows your grandmother's name. His mother, Carolyn Brooks, worked double shifts as a licensed practical nurse for 23 years. His father, James, drove a city bus route for 18. They were not wealthy people, but they were intentional people. Every dollar was purposeful. Every sacrifice was pointed toward something, toward Daniel. He graduated 3rd in his class from Westfield Central High, full academic scholarship to State University, then law school, not because it was glamorous, because Daniel Brooks had watched too many people in his neighborhood disappear into a legal system they didn't understand, represented by attorneys who didn't care, sentenced by judges who didn't see them. He wanted to be the person in that room who actually fought, and he did. 14 years as a public defender, 237 cases, a record of acquittals and reduced sentences that his colleagues talked about with the kind of reverence usually reserved for athletes. He once spent 72 consecutive hours preparing a closing argument for a 19-year-old kid charged with armed robbery. A kid who, it turned out, had been at his sister's birthday party with 16 witnesses when the crime occurred. The jury took 40 minutes, not guilty. That's Daniel Brooks. By the time he announced his congressional campaign, he had built something rare in politics, a genuine community trust. Not the manufactured kind, the kind you earn by showing up, by answering the 11 p.m. phone call, by knowing the names of your client's children. His campaign slogan was simple, for all of us. His platform covered criminal justice reform, economic investment in underserved communities, and health care access. He had appeared on local television 4 times in the past month. His face was literally on billboards, campaign signs, yard placards, in the very neighborhood where he was stopped. Let that land. The district Daniel was canvassing that Tuesday was called Harmon Heights. Once a thriving middle-class neighborhood, Harmon Heights had seen its share of economic erosion over the past 2 decades. Factories closed, young people left, the tax base shrank. But the people who stayed, they built something. Community gardens, youth mentorship programs, a credit union that opened specifically to serve residents turned away by traditional banks. Daniel's campaign had deep roots here. 3 of his core volunteers lived within 4 blocks of where he was walking. The air that morning was crisp, early spring, the kind of day where the light is sharp and golden and everything looks a little more vivid than usual. Daniel was dressed in business casual, dark slacks, a pressed blue button-down shirt, his campaign lanyard around his neck with his photo ID clearly visible. He was carrying a canvas tote bag filled with campaign literature, flyers, pamphlets, a clipboard with a canvassing sheet. He had parked his car on Harmon Avenue and was walking south toward Delray Street, the next block on his canvassing route. He had done this exact walk 17 times in the past 6 weeks. He was talking on his phone. His campaign manager, Renee Okafor, confirming a 2 p.m. press briefing at City Hall. The conversation was mundane. They discussed logistics, microphone setup, whether the mayor's deputy was going to show, normal, routine, ordinary, and then a patrol car slowed beside him, then stopped. Then another pulled up from the opposite direction. Daniel noticed. He kept his composure. He said to Renee calmly, "Something's happening. Let me call you back." He lowered his phone. He stood still. And he waited for whatever was coming, because Daniel Brooks, former public defender, knew exactly what it meant when 2 police cars converged on a black man walking alone on a residential street. He'd seen it before. He'd defended people after it happened. He never imagined he'd be standing on this side of it. Officer Terrence Gallagher was the first to exit his vehicle. 12 years on the force, assigned to the Harmon Heights district for the past 3. He would later describe his approach as standard protocol following a dispatch call. The dispatch, records would later confirm, had come in 17 minutes earlier. A caller reported a suspicious male in the area of Delray and Harmon, described as a black male, approximately 6 feet tall, wearing dark clothing, possibly carrying a bag. Let's be precise about something. That description, in its broadest interpretation, applied to thousands of men within a 5-mile radius at that moment. Daniel Brooks is 6'1". He is black. He was wearing dark slacks. He was carrying a bag. That was enough. Officer Gallagher approached from Daniel's left. His partner, Officer Sandra Meeks, moved around the right side, positioning herself behind Daniel. A 3rd unit parked at the end of the block. 3 officers, for a man walking with a clipboard and a tote bag of campaign flyers. Gallagher spoke first. "Hey, stop. I need to talk to you." Daniel stopped. He had already stopped. He turned slowly, deliberately, both hands visible. He had learned this from his clients. He taught it to his clients. Keep your hands visible. Move slowly. Do not escalate. He said, "Good morning, officer. Is there a problem?" "We got a call about someone matching your description in the area. I'm going to need you to tell me what you're doing out here." Matching your description. Those 3 words. Daniel would later say in his press conference that he felt, in that single moment, the full weight of what those words have meant in this country for generations, not just to him, to every man who looked like him, to his clients, to his father, to strangers he had never met, who had stood in this exact position on exact mornings just like this one. He breathed. He answered calmly, "I'm canvassing. I'm a congressional candidate. My name is Daniel Brooks. I represent District 7. I have ID and campaign materials right here." He reached, slowly, deliberately, toward his lanyard. "Don't reach for anything," Gallagher said sharply. "I'm reaching for my campaign ID. It's on the lanyard around my neck. I'm not reaching for anything else." "Sir, keep your hands where I can see them." Daniel lowered his hands. He kept them visible. He stayed still. And this is where the situation became something more than a misunderstanding. This is where it became something systemic. Officer Terrence Gallagher was the first to exit his vehicle. 12 years on the force, assigned to the Harmon Heights district for the past 3. He would later describe his approach as standard protocol following a dispatch call. The dispatch, records would later confirm, had come in 17 minutes earlier. A caller reported a suspicious male in the area of Delray and Harmon, described as a black male, approximately 6 feet tall, wearing dark clothing, possibly carrying a bag. Let's be precise about something. That description, in its broadest interpretation, applied to thousands of men within a 5-mile radius at that moment. Daniel Brooks is 6'1". He is black. He was wearing dark slacks. He was carrying a bag. That was enough. Officer Gallagher approached from Daniel's left. His partner, Officer Sandra Meeks, moved around the right side, positioning herself behind Daniel. A third unit parked at the end of the block. 3 officers, for a man walking with a clipboard and a tote bag of campaign flyers. Gallagher spoke first. "Hey, stop. I need to talk to you." Daniel stopped. He had already stopped. He turned slowly, deliberately, both hands visible. He had learned this from his clients. He taught it to his clients. Keep your hands visible. Move slowly. Do not escalate. He said, "Good morning, officer. Is there a problem?" "We got a call about someone matching your description in the area. I'm going to need you to tell me what you're doing out here." Matching your description. Those 3 words. Daniel would later say in his press conference that he felt, in that single moment, the full weight of what those words have meant in this country for generations. Not just to him, to every man who looked like him, to his clients, to his father, to strangers he had never met who had stood in this exact position on exact mornings just like this one. He breathed. He answered calmly, "I'm canvassing. I'm a congressional candidate. My name is Daniel Brooks. I represent District 7. I have ID and campaign materials right here." He reached, slowly, deliberately, toward his lanyard. "Don't reach for anything," Gallagher said sharply. "I'm reaching for my campaign ID. It's on the lanyard around my neck. I'm not reaching for anything else." "Sir, keep your hands where I can see them." Daniel lowered his hands. He kept them visible. He stayed still. And this is where the situation became something more than a misunderstanding. This is where it became something systemic. Renee Okafor had been in a campaign van 4 blocks away. When Daniel said something's happening and went quiet, she didn't end the call. She kept the line open. She heard the officers arrive. She heard Daniel's voice, controlled, measured, deliberate. She heard, "Don't reach for anything." Renee Okafor had been Daniel's campaign manager for 11 months. She was also, critically, a former investigative journalist. She knew exactly what to do. She grabbed her phone. She pulled up her second device. She kept the open call running, now functioning as an inadvertent audio recording of the entire encounter. She also started driving toward the scene. When she arrived, she did not exit the vehicle immediately. She parked. She retrieved her professional camera, a Nikon mirrorless she kept in the van for campaign events, and she began filming. From across the street, through the windshield, she captured what would become the most viewed 4-minute and 17-second video in the history of the state. You could see Daniel clearly, hands visible, standing calmly, his campaign lanyard around his neck, the photo ID catching the morning light. You could see 3 officers. You could see the tote bag on the ground. You could see the campaign flyer sitting on the hood of the patrol car, his face printed on it, unacknowledged. You could see at the 2-minute mark Gallagher speaking into his radio, and you could hear, because the audio from Renee's open phone call was crystal clear, Gallagher requesting backup for a congressional candidate with a clipboard on a public street in his own campaign district. Renee's hands were shaking as she filmed. She would say later that she wasn't shaking from fear. She was shaking from fury, the controlled, focused, burning kind, the kind that gets things done. She stepped out of the van. "Daniel Brooks, your 2 p.m. press briefing." Mayor Sutton's office confirmed. She called it out across the street, loud enough for everyone to hear. Every officer on that sidewalk turned. Daniel didn't break his composure. He nodded once. "Thank you, Renee." Gallagher looked at Renee. He looked at Daniel. He looked at the flyer on the hood of his car. He looked, for the first time, at the campaign sign on the lawn 12 feet behind him. Daniel Brooks, for all of us. Congressional District 7. The same face, the same man, standing in front of him. The silence that followed lasted 4 seconds. On video, 4 seconds is a very long time. Daniel spoke first. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. Officer Gallagher, I'd like to note that my campaign ID, my driver's license, and the canvassing materials in my bag have all confirmed my identity and purpose. I have fully cooperated with your investigation. I have not matched any description beyond being a black man in a residential neighborhood, and I am now going to be late for a meeting with the mayor's office. He picked up his tote bag. He retrieved his clipboard from the hood of the patrol car. He looked at Officer Hollis, the young one, the one who'd gone through his bag, the one whose body camera had been recording the entire time. I hope your camera was on, Daniel said. Hollis said nothing. His camera had been on. Gallagher attempted one more time. Sir, we were just following up on a dispatch call. I know what a dispatch call sounds like. I've been on the other side of them for 14 years. You have my license. You ran it. It came back clean. There is no legal basis to continue detaining me. So unless you're placing me under arrest, by which I advise you strongly to reconsider, I'm leaving. He turned. He walked toward Renee's van. He did not look back. Renee, still filming, caught Gallagher's face in the shot as Daniel walked away. It was the face of a man who had just realized, too late, what he had done. What he had done in broad daylight, with a body camera rolling, with a civilian recording from across the street, to a congressional candidate on his own campaign trail, in front of his own campaign signs. Renee uploaded the footage that night. She did not sensationalize the caption. She did not need to. She wrote, "Today, congressional candidate Daniel Brooks was stopped by police while canvassing in his own district. He had his campaign ID, his driver's license, and 3 yard signs within sight. Make of this what you will." By midnight, it had 200,000 views. By 6 a.m. Wednesday, 4.2 million. By the time Daniel sat down for his previously scheduled press briefing, now moved from 2 p.m. to the following morning, given the circumstances, the clip had been featured on CNN, MSNBC, the BBC, and had been shared by 4 sitting United States senators. The comment sections were volcanic, not divided, volcanic, because even people who reflexively defend law enforcement found it difficult to watch 3 officers surround a man with a campaign lanyard, a clean record, and his own face on a lawn sign 12 feet away, and argue that the response was proportional. The police department issued its first statement at 8:47 a.m. Wednesday. The Harmon Heights Police Department is aware of a video circulating online regarding an encounter between officers and a private citizen on Tuesday morning. We take all community concerns seriously and are reviewing the matter internally. Private citizen? That was their first mistake. Daniel Brooks held a press conference at 10 a.m. He wore a Navy suit, his campaign pin on the lapel. He was composed. He was precise. He was devastating. I was stopped because of what I look like. I was treated as a suspect because of what I look like. And I was released not because the officers determined I had done nothing wrong, but because my campaign manager called out my name loud enough for them to be embarrassed. That is not policing. That is bias with a badge. The room erupted. He wasn't finished. I have spent 14 years defending people in that neighborhood who experienced exactly what I experienced on Tuesday. Without a camera, without a campaign manager, without a press conference afterward. They experienced it, and then they went home and nothing changed. I am standing here today because something has to change. The applause started before he finished the sentence. The internal review took 9 days. On day 3, Officer Craig Hollis, the youngest officer at the scene, the one with the body camera, the one Daniel had looked directly at, submitted a written account to Internal Affairs that did not align with Officer Gallagher's version of events. Specifically, Hollis confirmed that he had seen and handled the campaign clipboard. He confirmed that Daniel's face was printed on it. He confirmed that he had seen the yard signs. He confirmed that he had not raised either of these facts with Gallagher during the stop. He also confirmed that backup had been called after the license had already come back clean. On day 7, Gallagher was placed on administrative leave pending the full review. Officer Meeks received a formal written reprimand. Hollis was reassigned. The department's police chief, Chief Raymond Castillo, held a press briefing on day 9. He stood at a podium with the mayor's seal behind him and said, in a statement that his communications team had clearly labored over, that the department was committed to equitable enforcement and that the encounter did not reflect the standards they held their officers to. He did not use the word wrong. He did not use the word apology. Daniel's legal team, 3 attorneys, 2 of whom he had worked with during his public defender career, filed a formal civil rights complaint with the Department of Justice within 72 hours of the incident. They also filed a civil lawsuit against the city. The suit named the city, the department, Officer Gallagher, and, critically, cited a documented pattern of racially disparate stops in the Harmon Heights district over the preceding 4 years. They had data, they had numbers, they had case files. The complaint cited that black pedestrians in Harmon Heights had been stopped at a rate 3.7 times higher than white pedestrians for the same category of dispatch calls between 2020 and 2024, 3.7 times. That number became the headline on Thursday morning. Not an anomaly, a pattern. 18 months later, after extensive litigation, discovery, and negotiation, the city reached a settlement. The figure, $1.4 million, accompanied by a mandated departmental review, the implementation of new bias training protocols, and a requirement that all dispatch calls be recorded with full description details logged before officers are deployed. The settlement was announced on a Wednesday. Daniel Brooks was in Washington, D.C. that day, attending his congressional orientation because he had won the election by 11 points. Here's what people get wrong about stories like this one. They treat them as isolated incidents, anomalies, the bad apple theory, packaged and delivered neatly so the system itself never has to answer. But Daniel Brooks is not an anomaly. He is a data point that happens to have a camera and a press conference. Think about it. How many men have stood on that same sidewalk in Harmon Heights without the lanyard, without the campaign manager, without the legal background, without the platform, and experienced the exact same thing, and then went home, or didn't go home, and nothing was written about them, nothing was reviewed, nothing changed. The dispatch description was black male, dark clothing, approximately 6 feet tall, carrying a bag. Do you understand how many people that describes in any city, on any morning? That description is not a description, that description is a category. And the category is not clothing or height or a bag, the category is race. And the system, not one officer, not one bad day, not one miscalculation, the system deploys that category as a tool of suspicion. 3 officers, 3 trained professionals, not one of them, at any point during that stop, looked 12 feet to their left at the yard sign. Not one of them, when the license came back clean, said, "We're done here," because the logic of the stop was never about the description, it was about belonging. Who belongs on this street? Who belongs in this neighborhood? Who belongs in this district, canvassing for votes, carrying a clipboard, speaking to residents? They had decided, before they got out of the car, that Daniel Brooks didn't. And here is the moral question that I need you to sit with. What if Renee hadn't been 4 blocks away? What if she hadn't kept the line open? What if she hadn't had a professional camera in that van? What if Daniel's composure, that iron, disciplined, 14 years in a courtroom composure, had cracked for even 1 second? What if he had raised his voice? What if he had stepped forward? What if he had reached for that lanyard half a second faster than Gallagher was comfortable with? What would the headline have been? Would there have been a press conference, or would there have been a different kind of story entirely? The kind where the description fits, the narrative is set, and the man with the clipboard is blamed for whatever happened next. That question is not hypothetical. That question is answered every single day in cities across this country for men who don't have a campaign lanyard, for men who are never seen as candidates, for men who are only ever seen as suspects. So, let's go back to that Tuesday morning. The air is crisp, the light is golden, the campaign signs are in the lawns. Daniel Brooks is on his phone, talking logistics, doing the ordinary work of democracy. He had earned the right to be on that street. not just as a citizen, as the person running to represent that street in the United States Congress. And 2 police cars still pulled up, and he was still stopped, and his ID still had to be checked. And even after it came back clean, he was still standing there. The $1.4 million settlement doesn't undo that morning. The departmental reforms don't erase those 4 seconds of silence when Gallagher finally looked at the sign. Gallagher's administrative leave doesn't give Daniel back the composure he had to spend, that specific, quiet, controlled expenditure of dignity that Black men in America learned to perform so that ordinary interactions don't become catastrophes. Daniel won his election. He is serving in Congress. He has introduced a bill named, with deliberate precision, the Equitable Stops Act, that would mandate bias auditing of all pedestrian and traffic stops at the federal funding level. The bill is in committee. Whether it passes, that's a different story. But here is what is not in committee. Here is what requires no legislation, no hearing, no subcommittee vote. The decision that Gallagher made when he pulled up next to a Black man on a public street with a clipboard and a lanyard and a tote bag full of campaign literature and saw a suspect. That decision happened in an instant. It was built over decades. It was built by a system that trains people, consciously or not, to see certain bodies as threats before they have any information at all. And until that changes, not in policy language, not in departmental memos, not in settlement agreements, until it changes in the moment, in the car before the door opens, Daniel Brooks will not be the last man stopped for matching the description. He will just be the one you happen to hear about. Who is the one you didn't hear about? What was their name? What were they carrying? And who was there to film it? That's the real story. And it's still being written. If this hit different, drop a comment. What part stayed with you? Share this with someone who needs to see it. And if you're new here, subscribe. Because stories like Daniel's deserve more than a trending moment. They deserve a record. We're keeping the record.